so that you can have access, inshallah, at a later time. So the course books, they are dyslexia friendly as well. There's broken down into sections, easier to digest, activities and learning objectives within the book as well. In order to consolidate their learning to make it stronger, we have workbooks that the children can do activities from. The activities are not just question and answer. Question and answer, of course, is important, but at the same time, different creative activities, different types of activities to target the different parts of the child's mind. Word searches, crosswords, coloring activities, fill in the blanks, building something, writing an article, a paragraph, different types of activities using Bloom's taxonomy to increase the level of thinking of every child as we go along. The teacher's handbook is what people would usually be very interested by, because as teachers, one of the most challenging thing is to prepare for the lessons, plan in advance, and to have creative lessons. That creativity sometimes we struggle with as teachers, and in order to assist with that creativity, alhamdulillah, work has been done in order to prepare these teachers handbooks. The teacher handbook, as you can see here, there is C1 fiqh, that's book 1, course book 1 fiqh. Then the topic is here, basic introduction to 5 pillars of Islam. Then the next one will be salah, next one will be Saum, Zakat, whichever one will come after that. And each one of them will have learning objectives here, further additional learning objectives, starter ideas at the beginning of the lesson. How can you start this lesson off? And then teaching activities and suggestions. Sometimes you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of activities you can do in order to teach this particular lesson. And then teachers tips on the right hand side and the left hand side in order to help the teacher become better as they go along, becoming a better teacher through the tips that are shared. Not just the tips, but also sunnah pedagogy, the sunnah methods of teaching, how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the best of teachers, using his example and bring it into our lives as teachers. So information of that sort is shared there as well. There's also links to SMSC, PSHE, seal and shared values, modern concepts, but all traditionally available throughout Quran and Hadith and stories. Things like eco-friendliness, things like animal rights. These kind of concepts are new. They're not new, but they're sort of out there. Everyone's talking about them. So where is it within our deen? And so the mapping has been done for the teachers to be able to know which part of the content of the books talks about X, Y, and Z, making it much easier for the teachers to discuss those points with the students when they reach that stage. The teacher's handbook is now we've stopped printing it because lots of teachers request to have it online. So along with our book that I mentioned earlier, inshallah, the digital version of this will be released through a website where you can access it through the website. You won't be able to download it, but you can copy and paste. So if you wanted to put it into your own content, your own lesson plan, etc., your own Word document or activity sheet or whatever, you can copy and paste easily, and you can put the text into your books, inshallah, as well. That's the teacher's handbook, and one of the biggest resources for teachers, the one that teachers really benefit from and love. Alhamdulillah, the books currently are being utilized in over 1,500 institutions and even more in various parts of the world in 7 different languages. In fact, alhamdulillah, we recently just launched Swedish, and it's available in French, in Spanish, in Albanian, in Italian, in Portuguese. So alhamdulillah, the books are available in various languages as well, and at the same time in multiple countries around the world. Now, moving on to teachers related material, 2 more I'm going to share with you, and then we'll go on to the training itself. So there is a teachers forum. This you can start using right now. There is no restriction, no login, no accounts, nothing. You can just go ahead to the website annasiha.com/teachers forum, download the PowerPoint presentations, worksheets, posters, booklets, certificates, anything you want. Lots and lots of hundreds of resources that teachers have uploaded, we have uploaded from our part, that you are able to benefit from and share with your students as well, and make your life as a teacher easier and make it enjoyable for the students by having creative activities available as well. And finally, the other teachers resource that we've got is the exam portal. The exam portal is a bank of 2,000 plus questions where you can log in, and this does require login. It is free of charge for those that are using the Nasiha books. However, the login is required because teachers, of course, are the only ones that are allowed to go on here. The management will sign up. The teachers will then be given accounts by the management, and the teachers then can log in and create their own papers within 5 to 10 minutes, very quickly, very easily. And I will demonstrate to you, if we have time, a live version of it. Every question is easy, medium, or hard. How many marks, how many minutes. Very quickly you can export it, and you'll be able to download as a PDF document, ready formatted for the students to start writing answers in. So alhamdulillah, this exam portal is available absolutely free of charge. Why? Because we want to take that time that the teachers are using in preparing and planning away, and allow them to use it into teaching and making it more enjoyable and exciting and engaging for the students, inshallah. So that's the resources that we've got available for teachers. There is one more, which is known as Nasiha World, but we will inshallah get to that at a later stage. But just to finish off the introduction part, the children are like wet cement. This is the quotation we try to go with. Children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them makes an impression. And we want to make a positive impression of deen on our students, so that when they finish the maktab, when they finish Islamic studies, they're not just performing their salah because the teacher is watching over them. They're not just doing the good things because someone is asking them if they've done it. They're not doing it because of the rewards that they're going to get something from the teacher or from the parents. The children build this love. Oh, we build this love into the hearts of the children to such a degree that it's had such an impression on them that throughout their lives they will want to willingly and voluntarily commit to the various commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that they want to do it out of their own willingness, and they inshallah will then live their life on this. The reward of that will come to us as their teachers, but we have to make that positive impression on them from a young age of deen. Deen is not just about halal and haram, about no, you can't do this, you can't do that, yes, you can do this, you can't do this. That's not all what deen is. Deen is how to live our entire life in according to the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for that we have to build the children's iman. And we look at the Sahaba, how the Sahaba mentioned that ta'allam al-iman, we learned the iman first, then we learned what the Quran said, the ahkamat, they came afterwards. The iman was built to such a degree that whatever hukum came afterwards, it became easy for them. And so this is the effort that we're making with our children in our classes, and how can we prepare them to want to practice on their deen by themselves. And in order to do that, well, there's various techniques, and that's why we have this session, the training session, that we usually cover with yourself. We do try to make it interactive, although today we might not be able to add that interactivity due to the fact that there are some changes to the session itself, and inshallah in future sessions we will try to add that interactivity based on the new content that we've got. So let me just change the slide share and let's move to the next part, inshallah. So this part of the session is known as effective teaching methodologies. Effective teaching methodologies. Now, the first thing is, we have some objectives to look at of what we're trying to achieve with this particular topic, or with this particular session. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to rethink the title, effective teaching. Then we're going to look at how to develop a creative mindset. Thirdly, looking at various methods of delivery. And the final one, which is talking about planning, we're going to go over that very quickly, but we won't have too much time to go over into the planning section. But inshallah, we can have a separate session just for planning. And in fact, there are other recording sessions that can be shared which relate to planning as well. So let's start off with the title itself. The first thing that we've got here is the title says, how do we ensure effective teaching takes place? But if you think about the word effective teaching, or the phrase effective teaching, then teaching is an action of who? Teaching is an action of the teacher. So what that means is, I, as a teacher, if I've been given a task that, look, you have to teach this Islamic studies book by Nasiha, and you've got to get page number 56 to page number 300 completed throughout the year. And you've got to cover all of these subjects, all of these topics, and this is the plan for it. So as a teacher, my task is to teach. And so if I was to just take that and teach the students, let's start from the page and go through the pages and complete the syllabus that has been given to us, I've done my job as a teacher. But is that what is required? If I just taught, that doesn't actually check the understanding of the students. Meaning I've done my job, I've completed it, we've gone through the content, the syllabus is done, everything's ticked off, but have the students actually taken what we have given them? Have they downloaded what we have shared with them? And in order to know that, we have to change our focus. And that focus has to move from how to ensure effective teaching takes place to how to ensure effective learning takes place. Because what is important is that the students learn. As a teacher, my job is not just to impart knowledge. My job is not just to share knowledge. My job is to ensure that every child has learned what I am sharing with them. If not every child has learned to 100%, but at the very least to a good degree, a minimum amount, every child must take away. And in order to make sure that every child learns, I've got to then ensure that every single child is taken care of according to their needs and their abilities. I don't just go through content and finish it off, teach it on the board or teach it by reading or by just answer a few questions. Rather, I will try to ensure that every child's needs are met, as in groups potentially, or according to a particular child's needs, if they have some special needs, in order for them to get to that minimum level. So our focus needs to be how effective learning takes place, not how effective teaching takes place. And in there, we are making sure that every child stays with us, every child learns something from our class, and we are keeping them together at a minimum level at the very least, and of course trying to get them to a level of mastery throughout the sessions as well. Then the next question we've got to ask ourselves is, are we really aware of our potential as a teacher? You know, the task of being a teacher, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has really selected us. We haven't chosen this job. We didn't apply for it and we got a job. We didn't get recommended. We didn't get asked to come and teach at a particular place. It was a selection made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we were selected to teach the Quran, the Hadith, the Sunnah, the Seerah, the Tariq, the Aqidah. We were selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that's the first honor that we have received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And every teacher has potential. Every human being, in fact, has potential. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is reported to have said, "An-nasu ma'adin kama'adini dhahabi wal fidda." Every human being, people are like mines of gold and silver. So there is a lot to extract from these mines. And as a teacher, we have a lot of potential. We've got to work hard in order to take out this potential from ourselves and distribute it within our students. And that, of course, takes effort, it takes time, it takes dedication, and it takes passion. And we've got to believe in ourselves, consciously and subconsciously. Our conscious mind will tell us that, you know what, I can do this, I can do this. Or sometimes our conscious mind tells us, I can't do this, I can't do this, it's not possible. But we have to remember that actually, if we tell ourselves, no, I can do it, the word impossible itself spells out, I am possible. The same word, just put an apostrophe and a space, it spells out, I am possible, meaning nothing is impossible. As a teacher, if I tell myself it is possible, then I will find a way to do it. Some students in Urdu, they call them barkati children. You know, they're just coming and sitting and they just waste their time. And so we let them be, you know, do their thing. Or they're just behind and no one really bothers about them. No child is a barkati child. No child is just there for the sake of it. Every child needs to be given the due care and attention, because they deserve it. Every child deserves to progress, learn the Quran, learn the Ahadith, learn their deen, and fall in love with their deen, so that when they finish, they will continue to practice on the deen, and the reward will continue to come to us. And so, to some degree, we have to be selfish as well. And to do this, we have to tell ourselves, no, I can do this. I can do this. I've got to tell myself that it's possible. It's not impossible. When we do that, we tell our mind this again and again. Our mind becomes accustomed to knowing that, no, I've got to try. I've got to find a way. There is a solution. And did you know that the subconscious mind is 30,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind? 30,000 times, meaning if you just sit there and imagine and think about the problem that you're facing, your subconscious mind that you're training to think about this problem is able to solve the problem much better than the conscious mind, which talks about reality and thinks about the things that are currently happening. And so we've got to train our mind to speak, to think in this manner. As a teacher, we have a lot of potential. We've got to train our mind to think that I can find a solution, and you will see that the potential will come and will become reality when the solution actually comes in front of us. Through our efforts, of course, through our thoughts, our fikr, our du'as, our lots of time that we spend behind the students. When it comes into reality, then we will see it eventually. But we have to tell ourselves that it's possible. And as a teacher, we should never ever lose hope. So there are three driving factors as a teacher. Firstly, as we mentioned just now, the potential. What potential do we have? We have to believe in ourselves, the fact that we can do it. Then we have the willpower. The willpower is a difficult one. Why should I, waste so much time behind this particular child or that particular child? I always say this on training sessions, that as teachers, we're not really in it for the income, we're in it for the outcome. And if we were in it for the income, I'm pretty sure Amazon or someone else would have paid us much better for less headache, less time spent, and would probably be ending up better off. But we didn't choose that path. We chose this path, and Allah selected us for this path of teaching. And that is the first motivation, that it's a noble and a great effort that we are a part of. But at the same time, there are a hadith of our beloved messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which remind us of the sadaqah jariyah that we are leaving behind by being an educator, being a teacher. And that's what gives us the willpower. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, إذا مات الإنسان انقطع عنه عمله إلا من ثلاث إلا من صدقة جارية أو علم ينتفع به أو ولد صالح يدعو له. A person passes away, they leave behind them three things. They leave behind, meaning they are able to benefit, in fact. They can't benefit from nothing except for three things. The first is sadaqah jariyah, something good you say, you share, you do, and people benefit from, and they continue to share it on. You continue to receive the reward of it. As teachers, that's what we're doing. أو علم ينتفع به, or we leave behind knowledge which is benefited from. Again, that is what teachers are doing. The third thing, أو ولد صالح يدعو له, we leave behind a pious child who makes dua for us. And that is, again, the children, the students that are in our class. They are like our children. We want them to remember us after we pass away. And this is what I mean when I said we have to be selfish to some degree as a teacher, that I want all of that reward. I want this student to remember me. When the student leaves from this maktab, from this madrasa, from this school, when they grow up, I want them to remember me, and in their du'as, I want them to be making dua for me. So how can I make an impact, inspire them to such a degree in my class that they will remember this for the rest of their lives? Even if they don't remember for the rest of their lives, it will still receive the reward for it through the good that they do and share and teach others. But on top of that, if they remember us, they pray for us, they send us the reward after we pass away, all of this is in our mizan hasanat. On the day of Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will present it to us. That is what gives us the willpower, the motivation, the drive to continue doing what we do. And then the final factor is the how. I've mentioned about how we need to be creative, how we need to teach in a manner that is inspiring. But how? How do we really do that? And that's where we sometimes struggle. and not every teacher is as creative as the next teacher. And so we need some assistance, we need a hand up, we need some help. And in order to provide us with some thinking points, we're going to share with you a few ways in which we can be a creative teacher. So let's share some of those with you and see how those might be something that we might already be doing, or they may be something we can utilize in the next lesson that we have with our students. So the first tip that we have is that the subject that we've been given to teach, we've got to love teaching that subject. Of course, we love the subject matter itself. For example, Quran, we love the Quran. Hadith, we love the Hadith, but we have to also love teaching it to the students. And secondly, we've got to love the class that we have. Every child that comes into our class, they come with their own challenges, they come with their own problems, they come with their own baggage, as they call it. But we can't bog ourselves down, slow ourselves down. We can't demotivate ourselves because of how a particular child behaves or misbehaves. Of course, there's going to be challenges. As a teacher, that is what our duty and task is, to deal with these challenges and to assist every child to find their potential. And to do that, we have to give them love. We have to give them kindness. We have to give them compassion. In this day and age, when children are able to find role models literally anywhere they look, they are constantly addicted to and glued to their smartphones and the internet. They are able to find role models all over the place. And if they come to the maktab, the masjid, the madrasa, and the Islamic studies classes, and they see that, look, over here, it's all about, oh, do this, do that. Why are you doing this? Why haven't you done your homework? And it's all just about telling them off and not, showing them and giving them the love and a place to belong to. Then they will find other places. This is nature. This is how a human being and a human mind works. That if they can't find one place to belong to, they will find another place. And the place that they will find is definitely not going to encourage them to practice on their deen, to be connected to the masjid, to be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we have to provide, as the teachers of Islamic studies, as the teachers of Quran and Hadith, we have to provide the children with this opportunity, that you come to the maktab, the madrasa, the classroom, and this is your safe haven. We will learn here. Of course, we have been disciplined. Of course, we have good behavior. But at the same time, if you want to talk, you want to share something, you want to ask a question, there is an opportunity for that as well. You're not going to be shut down. You're not going to be shouted at for asking a question which is not, a good question. Rather, we will try to work through it. We will try to find a solution. If you look at the time of the Sahaba, one Sahabi came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he asked for permission to commit zina. And the Sahaba, they were up in arms. They were very upset and angry, and they were trying to grab hold of him. And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to them, let him be, let him ask his question. And so Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us how, without even telling him that it's haram or you can't do it or why are you thinking about this, none of these things, without any of that, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam made him understand what he was thinking was absolutely incorrect. And the Sahabi, he said that after this discussion with Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he never ever thought of any action like that throughout his life. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam worked on him without telling him it's haram, it's not allowed, what you're thinking is wrong, or even telling him off for such a question. He asked him some questions and made him think logically. And eventually the Sahabi understood. And so like that, we're going to have students come to us in our classes with questions like this. But if there is no environment of love, care, compassion, the ability to speak to your teacher, then the children will not speak. They will do the task that they've been given begrudgingly, upset, burdensome. They will find it, and they will continue their life. And they will, as soon as they look for an opportunity to finish, they finish the Quran. At the age of 9, 10, they'll be out. At the age of 11, 12, they'll quickly be out. They want to be out because they don't feel like this is a place that they want to be. And so we want to follow this hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a teacher more so. Al-mu'minu ma'laf. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a mu'min is a place of love. It's a place of care, compassion, love. This is what a mu'min will give. And as a teacher, we ought to give it to our students so that they feel that this is where I want to be. And inshallah, through that love, they don't take any deen, any knowledge away with them. Potentially, they might not take any knowledge away with them from the maktab, from the madrasa, but if they take away the love of deen, the love of the masjid, the love of ulama and the people of ilm, then that might just be sufficient to save their deen. So we've got to make sure that we love our class despite the challenges they give us. And if there is children that are giving us big trouble and big problems, then we've got to make lots of dua for them. Our teacher used to say to us that they are in need of more dua. They are more in need of our dua. And so we must make dua for every one of our students, and more so for the ones that are giving us trouble, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes their hearts, guides their minds, and allows them to come onto the right path, and allows us to say the things that will inspire them to be a good person, the good person that we want them to be. And this all requires passion, of course. We're passionate, we will get anything done. And of course, we are all passionate teachers, which is why we've joined today's session. However, a reminder is always beneficial. We've got to remind ourselves. It is the same with Iman. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is reported to have said in a hadith, Jaddidu imanakum. Jaddidu imanakum. The Sahaba asked, وَكَيْفَ نُجَدِّدُ إِيمَانَنَا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. How do we renew our Iman, O Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam? And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, with the repetition of the kalima La ilaha illallah. And that is an indication that Iman also goes up and down. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, in his book, he's made a bab, a chapter, and he said, Al-Imanu yazidu wa yanqus. Iman decreases, increases and decreases. And so similarly, passion as a teacher will also increase and decrease. It's not something that is at a stable point, a stagnant point, doesn't increase and decrease. We've started our job and that's what it is. No, sometimes we'll feel very motivated, very passionate, want to do a lot. And sometimes we'll just feel like, I've had too much. Nothing's working. I don't want to do this anymore. And these moments will come, but we remind ourselves why we're doing it, what we're going to get at the end of it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and give ourselves each other motivation on this. Then we'll see, inshallah, we will be able to reach the destination with all of our students, and that destination is inshallah Jannatul Firdaus. Now I've got an activity. I've spoken a lot. You can do this yourselves, inshallah. If you've got a piece of paper, then you can go ahead and try this out. And if you get it, then you can just send a message on the chat to say yes, or got it, or done, something like that. So the task here is very simple. Noughts and crosses. You've got to connect 3 noughts or 3 crosses in a straight line. So you've got to find 3 x's and put them in a line. If they're in a line, then you're going to connect them. And or you can find 3 O's, and you can put you can if you find 3 of them, you can put a line through and say that they are also connected. I'll give you 30 seconds for this. You can go ahead and try this out and see if you actually can figure this one out. So we've got some responses coming in. Some people saying that yes, you've got them, 3 X's and 3 O's. Okay, I guess someone has shared it in the chat. There we go. All right. So the answer is actually very simple. This is the answer. Some of us that might have been looking, you might have been thinking, well, that doesn't really work because it wasn't in the shaded box. But those of us that actually look at it a bit more detailed with a sharper eye, alhamdulillah, we figure it out very easily. Think outside the box. Sometimes we get so bogged down with getting the same thing done day in, day out. We've got to come and teach the kids, get the content done, give them a test, mark the test, manage their behavior. Every day we're just in that box, in that little repeated motion that we are constantly in. We get so bogged down with it that we forget to think outside the box. When we need a solution, we're still looking within that box and we can't find a solution. Sometimes you've got to step back. When you step back, you can take a bird's eye view picture. You can have a overview, and you'll be able to figure out the problem much more easily. In this case over here, all we needed to do was look outside of the box. The word box itself can be utilized in order to make the 3 X's or the 3 O's. And that is the point of sharing this activity, that sometimes step away, think outside the box, and inshallah, great results will come by. We've got to, with the love that we spoke about earlier, and the creativity which it requires us to think outside the box, will bring about results, the results that we want, inshallah. Someone's asking if we get a prayer break. You see, at the moment we've got people that are taking part in this session from different parts of the world, and so unfortunately we don't know when prayers are in different parts of the world. So if you need to pray, you can go ahead. Inshallah, there will be a recording available for you later on, inshallah. Okay, so the first teaching method that we want to share with you, the first point that we shared, a technique and tip that we shared, was with regard to love of our class, love of our subject, and being passionate. Now, the first technique that we want to share of how to make children remember more and make sure that they understand better and master the content that we're giving them. And for that, the first one that we've got here is using stories. Stories are a wonderful method, a wonderful method in which we are able to derive lessons, and not only derive lessons, but give them something memorable that they will keep with themselves. And so let's take a look at this lesson over here. This lesson here is using is fiqh terminology. Now, this terminology is a list of words that they've got to memorize. That is fard, wajib, sunnah muakkada, sunnah ghair muakkada, mustahab, makruh, and haram. These are some of the things that they need to memorize. Now, the reason why this topic is important is because these words will come up again and again, and when they come up again and again, then they will the children will need to know what they mean. If we don't spend some time on this, every time we go through it, we're going to be required to explain it each time. And so the problem there is we're going to waste that time every single time. Instead of that, how about we spend a good amount of time, maybe half an hour, 25 minutes, where we go through these words. Now, how are we going to go through these words? We need to first get them to memorize it, but at the same time, we're going to explain it. It'll be very boring if we just go through, okay, fard is this, wajib is this, sunnah is this, sunnah muakkada and ghair muakkada is this. So we want to change it up a little bit. So in order to change it up, we can make it into a story. So some teachers, they made this into a story, and they did this. An example for you, and this is known as loci, where you personify some of the words that you've been given. So here we've got, yesterday at school, Principal Fard contacted head teacher Wajib regarding Sunnah's attendance. He was informed that Muakkada was very punctual, however Ghair Muakkada occasionally attended. Principal Fard mentioned this in the assembly and said he also liked Mustahab's habit of avoiding friends like Makruh Tanzihi, although Tanzihi wasn't as bad of a friend as Tahrimi. For it was Tahrimi that was heading down the route of haram, who just got excluded for doing everything that was not mubah. So you can see here, in a simple way, creating a story which has a bit of the meaning of the words as well, where the children are able to remember this. Not only remember, because they've created the story, they will also enjoy creating the story, and they will also learn the topic that we're trying to teach them. For those of you that have studied the Alimiya course, the Alamatul Ism, this is an example of that. Mr. Al, Mrs. Jar, and Mrs. Jar went to a Tanween restaurant and in a Ta Marbuta. The Tathniya sat on a Jama table and ordered a Mudaf burger. They enjoyed the burger and said it tasted like a Mawsuf. When they got to their Ta Marbuta, it was no longer working, so they called Musnad Ilay, and he took them home in a brand new Musaghar Mansub. again, we've personified it, made a story out of it, and we got the children to understand the various points that we're trying to give them as well. There is an activity here, but unfortunately we can't do this activity, so I'm going to show you the result of it, the solution of this activity, where you've got a list of words. How can you create a story out of it? So we've got the story for the first one here. Takbir Tahrima opened the door as Qiyam stood and shouted Qira'ah. Are you coming down to see Ruku? He didn't listen and stood standing like Qawma. Sajda listened and came all the way down and sat down next to Jalsa. As they sat, Ustaz Qada walked in after sitting down said Salam. So you can see a simple story that was made. These are made by teachers, by the way, and I'm just sharing with you on different training sessions. Different teachers share with us, and we just add them in here so that other teachers can, inshallah, benefit. The other one, this is random words now. So the first one we have, some things about salah, but the second one we have just random words. How can you create a story from random words? The scissors came driving in the car to see a book which was blocking his house. So he took the key out quickly as the pen fell out in panic. Then whilst running, he kicked his shoes, which fell right into the postbox. So this was created within literally a few minutes by some teachers. And the reason why we're sharing it with you here is that it is possible. It's not that difficult. It of course will require some thought, and this thought, of course, this needs to be refined a little bit. Give it thought and then write it down and then refine it a little bit with the students, and you'll see that inshallah very easily they will remember, they will memorize, and they will be able to practice upon what we have taught them. Did Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam use stories? Of course, the Quran is full of stories. The Sunnah and the Hadith are also full of stories. Just like the story of the people of the ship, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained that if the people of the lower deck, they try to make a hole, and the people of the upper deck didn't stop them from making that hole, the entire ship will drown. That was, of course, explaining the Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained it in such a manner using a story that the Sahaba understood it very well. And so we see this in the Quran also, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us many examples, many stories, and it derives lessons for us, and there are many lessons for us to derive as well. So using stories is actually a very good method. Teaching with stories, sometimes the story is in the book, but we don't need to open the book and read the story line by line. So let's read paragraph 1, let's read paragraph 2. Okay, let's explain this third one now. That's one way of teaching, and that is fine as well. The children will learn something, of course, through that. But sometimes let's tell the story. Let's explain the story to them in a manner that they can imagine the steps that are happening in that story, and that itself will bring about a different effect on those children. And so using this method will allow the children to remember what we're telling them for a longer amount of time. That's the whole idea. The idea is not to just use another method for the sake of it. The idea is we want them to remember this for the rest of their lives. So how can we make it such that they will remember for most of their life, if not throughout the rest of their life? So we use different methods for that in order to achieve that purpose and that goal. Another teaching method is using visual aids. Right now we've got the screen in front of us. We're using a visual aid to help you see and understand some of the points that we're sharing. Similarly, when teaching, we can do that same thing in our classrooms as well. I'll give you an example of how the lesson can happen. So this is a lesson of speaking the truth. Now, in this lesson of speaking the truth, the teacher has got a bowl of water. This bowl of water has got pepper inside. That pepper, black pepper, that is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've got a clean cotton buds or Q-tips. These are the clean heart, the one that has not sinned. When put in the mercy of Allah, it is completely covered by the mercy of Allah. The other set that is a heart that is covered by sin, that is detergent, washing up liquid. It's covered by sin. You can see when put into the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is distance from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not a single speck of the mercy has come on there. This refers to the ayat of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ala la'natullahi ala al-kadhibin. The la'na, the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on the liars. What is la'na? La'na is being distanced, al-bu'd an rahmatillah, being distanced from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this is an example that has been given visually. Also, you can talk about how, when a person sins, their heart receives a black dot. They sin so much that the entire heart is covered, and they then find it difficult to practice on their deen. Similarly, here, that we show here, the Q-tips, they've been covered completely, and when put in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is distance from such a person. You could do this as a demonstration, a video, or you can do it physically with the students, and you'll see that they will be able to learn this concept. And there are many other examples. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says in the hadith, وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُوهَا. When you do something bad, do something good after it. An example of that, get a bottle of water or a jug of colored water, and then put it under a running tap. And you'll see when the clean water is going inside, slowly, slowly, the dirty water or the colored water is coming out. And eventually, all of that colored water will be out, and the clean water will remain in the bottle. That is an example of doing good after we've done something bad, in order to empty out the effects, remove the effects of the bad that has been done. And so we can use visual teaching methods like this. Did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam use visual teaching methods? Of course he did. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the best of teachers. He is our role model. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. And so he drew something like what we see on the screen for the Sahaba, to explain to them that this rectangle, this is your life. The line that goes through the middle and all the way outside, that is the hopes and desires of a person. We plan for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, yet we don't know what's going to happen in 5-10 minutes. And the small lines in the middle, they are the trials and tribulations, the difficulties that a person will face. If they miss one, the next one will catch them. This was a concept explained by Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the Sahaba by drawing it in the sand. He didn't just explain it verbally. He took the opportunity to draw it in the sand for them and to explain that particular point to them. As a teacher, we've got to utilize the whiteboard. The whiteboard that has been put in our class, if we don't have one, we need to get one. We utilize the whiteboard by drawing. So if we're discussing something, they've heard it, that's one time. Then many students will not grasp and will not be able to understand it straight away, will not remember it straight away. So we make a note of it on the board, we make a list on the board. And then as we're discussing, we add to that list. We make a spider diagram, we draw a map of something. We write the Arabic words, the letters, the harakat, various things that we use the board for. We will see that the children will be able to download the information much better. This is using visual aids. If you have the capacity of having a screen or a projector in your class, then you can utilize that also. And you can bring about pictures and videos that they're able to. Of course, we have to screen all of this before we show it to them, not just do it on the spot and something wrong comes up and we don't want them to see it. We want to check all of this beforehand, prepare beforehand, and display it to the students and show them what they could what could benefit them in the topic that we're trying to teach them. And the third method that we want to share with you today, I have been told that shortly we've got to give break for Maghrib Salah actually, so we are going to do that inshallah. Making lessons practical. There's lots of different ways of practical lessons, but some ideas for you. We've got sutra, najasa, adab of eating, helping the needy. Sutra, you can do a practical lesson, get the children to make a sutra or to place a sutra, to see, practically, physically, what difference does it make to have a sutra? Why do we put a sutra? What does a sutra look like? What can be used as a sutra? So all of this can be mentioned to them. Talking about, if you go to Makkah, Medina, what happens there? If you're in a local masjid, for example, then can you go in front of someone? If you are in a place where people could potentially need to go in front of you, then what could you do? What kind of sutra can you place? So practically explaining instead of just telling them the theory. Cleaning of najasa, making it easy for the children to understand the method of cleaning najasa by using something like tomato ketchup and water in a bowl to clean off some najasa, for example, and asking them and showing them how it is done. Adab of eating, of course, children will love to have a little party in class, and so bringing something to eat, sharing it with the students, and asking the children to observe each other, especially the younger ones, observe each other, which adab have been followed, or we share with them, or we get the children to stand up one after another and share with us the adab, the etiquette of eating, and then they will collectively eat and enjoy as well at the same time. Then we've got helping the needy, raising some funds going out there from our madrasa, our maktab, the children, they will go out and help the neighbors, they will go to the homeless, they will help them, they will feed them a hot meal. Funds will be raised, and it will be given to the local food bank. The children will help in packing those food packs, and when the people come to collect, some of them will go and they will assist with the distribution. And on top of that, different parts of the world where there is a need, the money is sent to those places, and the feedback is then given to the children, how their efforts have benefited people around the world. So making it practical, getting the children to understand the impact that they can have in the real world. So there's lots of ideas of making things practical. Wudu, for example, in the wudu area, tayammum, salah. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli." Perform salah like you see me performing. So that's demonstration. And then the Sahaba, they demonstrated to others. And so that's practical teaching, where the teacher stands up and shows them this is how you perform, gets one child to stand up and show the rest of them, so they are learning it practically, and then getting all of them to stand up, for example, as well. Making lessons practical. So there's lots of different ideas and tips, but just as a reminder and a recap, we've covered stories, teaching through stories. We've covered teaching through visual aids, and we've covered teaching practically. And of course, all of this requires passion, dedication, and it requires the teacher to continuously look for solutions and remember that they have potential, inshallah. Did the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam teach practically? Of course he did. There was one time a Sahabi, he came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He did wudu, he performed salah, and then he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he made salam. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not respond to his salam, and he said to him, "Irji' fasalli fa innaka lam tusalli." Go back, pray again, because you haven't actually prayed. He goes back, he performs the salah again, comes back, makes salam. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam does not respond, and he says, "Irji' fasalli fa innaka lam tusalli." Go back, pray again, because you haven't actually prayed. He goes back, prays again, and comes back, makes salam. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam does not respond. And then he says to him, "Irji' fasalli fa innaka lam tusalli." Go back, pray again, you haven't actually prayed. At that point, the Sahabi then says, "Fa'alimni ya Rasulullah, teach me, O Rasulullah." And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam then says to him that when you want to perform salah, make your wudu properly. After you've made your wudu properly, then you perform your salah with calmness and composure. And he taught him practically. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught him practically by getting him to do it again, He didn't realize. Then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually told him what's wrong and got him to perform. This gives us two lessons. One is, of course, practical teaching, but at the same time, also building resilience within our students. We shouldn't be giving the children answers very quickly just because it makes life easy for us, or we can quickly get the job done because we just say, okay, you're getting stuck, here's the answer, let's move on. Because that's only going to make them dependent and reliant on us as their teacher. Instead, we want to teach them the famous saying, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, and teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. We don't want to give the child the answer. We want to teach them how to get to the answer. So for the rest of their life, they will be able to get to the answer rather than just rely on someone else for the answer. So building resilience. In this day and age where children are accustomed to instant gratification through Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all of this, where they like it, they watch it, they don't like it, they swipe it, they play games and they get these sounds and coins and points and all sorts of stuff. They're used to and accustomed to all of this, so they are not used to having something not go their way. And so as teachers, we've got to build their resilience to say, look, if something doesn't go your way, it doesn't mean that it's out of your hands, that it's finished. You can figure it out and you can get to a solution and get to a positive conclusion. This is how we get it done. So building that resilience in our students as well. Now I'll share this as the last point, and then we'll break for Salah, inshallah. One thing that researchers have said, that by design, 50% of our brain, forgets 50% of the content within the first hour. Meaning one lesson is about an hour. Within 1 hour, 50% of the content is forgotten. That's by design. The brain works like that. And the brain will forget 70% of the content within 24 hours. Meaning this is not intentional. This is how the mind works. Majority of the content is forgotten by this amount of time. And the way to reduce it is by using spaced learning, or the 5-step method they call it, which is we repeat the content in different contexts. Our mind is a brilliant creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It creates physical connections when we learn new things. And as a teacher, we want to give them the knowledge, and we're going through, and maybe a week later or a few days later we're covering something different, but it's related, and so we make that connection of what we covered earlier. And then a month later we have a different topic that we're teaching, but it is related, or some word of it, some part of it is connected, so we connect that to what we learned a month earlier. And the brain now has built 3 different connections in itself for this bit of knowledge that has been downloaded into the mind. So you can understand repetition is important, and repetition in a strategic manner is also important, so that the children are able to retain the content in the first instance, and then over time, through the way that we share the knowledge and content that we are going to share with them, we're able to build those connections so that they're able to remember things for a longer period of time. We want them to, of course, remember this knowledge for the rest of their lives. And to be able to do that, we have to use repeat, repeat, repeat. إذا تكرر تقرر في القلب. When something is repeated, it will sit firmly in the heart and in the mind, inshallah. Before we move on to the next part, we're going to take a short break, and after that we'll be back, inshallah. So we'll take a 10-minute break, 10-minute break, and we'll be back. Jazakumullah khairah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We'll continue and finish off this first session in the next few minutes. So we're just going to move on to the planning session, inshallah, the planning part, and then we'll give it to Mufti Ubaidullah, who will inshallah take us through some of the steps with regard to the services of Misbah Maktab Education Services Board of America. So the first thing about planning is, if we have failed to plan, then we have planned to fail. Of course, that is in anything in life. If we want to get something done in a good manner, then we usually need to create a plan for it. And if we have a good plan for it, we are more likely to succeed, and we are more likely to get it done in a more efficient manner. And the same thing applies with our teaching. We've got to make a plan, to have some sort of a plan, in order to have the most efficient lesson, and of course a successful lesson as well, inshallah. Then what we've got here is learning objective. Learning objectives is what we set for the students, and also for us as teachers, to know what we are going to reach by the end of the lesson. We have a goal in mind, a destination in mind. For example, teaching the topic of fasting. Now, what do we want to teach them? Do we just want to teach them fasting as a basic thing? That what is fasting? When do we fast? What are the different types of fast that a Muslim can fast throughout the year? For example, the fast of the month of Ramadan, the Sunnah fast, etc. Or is it the particular depth of the different masail and the rules and regulations regarding to fasting? So we set a goal for what we are trying to achieve in this lesson. That will make it clear for the students of what is expected of them, and it also makes it clear for us what is expected from us. Then what we've got is a starter, a main body, and a summary. This is the 3 parts of a lesson that we must plan for as well. The starter is at the beginning of the lesson. What are we expected to engage the children with at the beginning of the lesson? So a little activity, a few questions, maybe a quick recap of what was covered in the previous lesson. Different types of activities can be done in a starter. Then the main body is the main part of the teaching. This one we want to break it down. We want to make it such that the children don't get bored. Giving them a long speech for 20-30 minutes is going to switch them off. The first five minutes they're going to switch off. So we've got to have a quick activity after every 5-10 minutes of explanation, a quick discussion, something in the middle. So we teach a little, we explain a little, and then we give an activity, we have a discussion, we ask some questions to keep the children engaged, to make them part of the lesson. We want to involve them in our lesson so that they will actually remember what we are teaching them. And of course, a summary is where we end the lesson by summarizing or going over, just to ensure that the children have remembered what we've covered with them, giving them a little activity, a few questions to answer, or maybe just getting one of them, a few of them, to explain what has been covered in today's lesson. Then there's assessments. Now, the purpose of assessments, of course, is to see how well the students have learned, but at the same time, it is also to see how well we have taught as a teacher, because it's also a test to see whether our teaching actually worked and whether the students actually remember what we taught them. If they don't remember, if we realize that 50-60% of the class they're getting a particular question wrong, then there is a problem in our teaching, meaning what we taught them the students weren't able to understand very easily, and so we might need to teach it to them in a different manner. And so it's not just a test for the students, it's a test to see how we performed as well. Sometimes you need to also use in the moment planning. So we talked about proper plan, we just mentioned. Sometimes we have an in the moment planning. In the moment planning is something more popular nowadays, that you might be discussing a particular point with the students, and then some student asks a question, and that question, you think, what, that's an important point that I think we should all discuss. Now that's not part of your plan. Now you're going off on a tangent, but you are now planning in the moment, making up some thoughts, some ideas, some exercises, maybe some discussions in your mind at that particular moment, because you find that this is what's required, this is what's beneficial at this moment in time. So in the moment planning, which turns a moment of curiosity from your part or from the student's part into an activity. So sometimes we don't have to always stick by the plan 100%, that I made this plan, I have to complete it. We make a plan that's a general guide for us, that will help us get to a destination properly. But if we need to change it because of something that has happened, or something that has been shared, or a discussion that's required, then that is also totally okay and totally fine to have as well. In the planning, we also have to try to plan the lesson such that it's teacher led but pupil centered, meaning it's not just the teacher speaking. We usually share this phrase and this saying with the teachers: move away from being the sage on the stage to being the guide on the side. Move away from being the sheikh, the one that sits at the front and delivers a lecture, and the rest of the people, whoever wants to learn will learn, whoever doesn't will not listen. Move away from being that, because that's not what children need. That's what adults will learn from. Children need a teacher who is a guide by their side, the one that will go around, ask them questions, get some of their input, some of their feedback, what they think, and based on what their understanding is, educate them as well. So involving the children in our learning, teachers leading the lesson, but we are involving and including the students in that lesson with us. Asking the pupils, what do you think? There was a professor of robotics, and he says, one time one of the girls, she came to me, one of his students, she came to me and she said, look, there's a robot, something's wrong with it. So the teacher says, I said to her, what do you think? So the teacher said, the student said that maybe, there might be a software problem. So he said, okay, go try it out. She goes and tries it out, tinkers around with some of the software, but nothing worked. She comes back and says to the professor, what, professor, it's still not working. Professor says, what do you think? The student said, I think it might be a hardware problem. So he says, okay, go try it out. She goes, tries it out, tinkers around with it, plays around with it, and comes back, says, what, it's still not working. So the professor says to her, what do you think? So the student says, maybe it's a battery problem, battery issue. She goes back, he says, okay, go try it out. She goes back, tries it out. And a few times, this happens. And then eventually she figures it out. She comes back and says to the teacher, the professor, oh, thank you very much, professor. You really helped me in this. So Prophet says, I really didn't help you. All I said was, what do you think? And you figured the whole thing out. So sometimes we've got to ask the children to come up with the solutions and involve them and ask them, what do you think? And when we ask them the question to try to find the solution, then they are using their mind. It might be challenging, but they're using their mind, and using the mind is going to sharpen their mind. And inshallah, through that, they will learn a lot more as well. So it's not where we just give speeches, we just explain to the students, and that's a lesson done. Involve the children, ask them questions. You're talking about spreading rumors, talk about fake news. Who knows what fake news is? Has you ever come across fake news? Can you give me an example of fake news that affected people around the world? Asking them those questions, and they will give you some information, some knowledge, some things that they have heard, learned, read, and that way you're involving them within the lesson. And also allow students to make mistakes. Of course, students are going to make mistakes, but if we shut them down every time they make a mistake, or we tell them off if they ever make a mistake, then they will be very wary of making that mistake again, or any mistake again, or saying anything in the first place. And so it's very important for us to allow them to make a mistake, meaning make it such that they are comfortable with saying something that they think is right, but may be wrong. And we tell them, okay, you know what, actually, Jazakallah for sharing that point, but I think that is not the correct thing. That's not the line that we're thinking on. Let's get an answer from someone else. So allow them to make a mistake. It says, how can you think like that? Well, you're not listening. You know, I've literally just explained for 10 minutes, and you ask a question like that. So when they make a mistake, then, and we tell them off to some degree. Of course, if they are not paying attention, etc., that's a separate session we'll talk about, inshallah. But just in general, if they make a mistake, then don't try to shut them down each time. Allow them to make that mistake and guide them on the mistake that they've made. And you will see that you will be able to correct a lot of their misunderstandings or the things that they have mislearned. Sometimes they learn something incorrectly, and we have to then teach it to them in the correct manner. And if we allow them to make that mistake, then of course we'll be able to teach it to them as well. Now there's an activity here, of course, and this activity usually we do it in practice, but we don't have the chance to do that in practical at the moment. So we'll head straight on, and we'll look at some starter ideas, some starters that we mentioned earlier. So we go right to the qualities of Allah, things that Allah has created. Give them a word search about it, or guess the word. So you call it hangman as well sometimes. True or false activities, peer describe, put in the correct order, flashcard words and definitions. In terms of assessments, you can have true or false, some statements that they've got to write about, a quiz, a poem that they've got to write, or call a pupil up and ask them to say something from what they have learned. So these are different ways that you can assess the students as well. These are different ideas that have just been shared by some teachers. Now to finish off this first session, we've got a video. So let's watch this and see what the video is about.
حافظ حرف ايش؟ نون. حرفنا مين؟ نون. نرحب في حرف النون. السلام عليكم يا حرف النون. السلام عليكم يا حرف النون. كيف حالك يا حرف النون؟ كيف حالك يا حرف النون؟ يا حبيبي يا حرف النون. يا حبيبي يا حرف النون. حرف النون. حرف النون. نور ونجوم. نور ونجوم. حرف النون. حرف النون. نوم وسكون. نوم وسكون. حرف النون. حرف النون. نعمة منان. نعمة منان. لا لا لا. لا لا لا. ني ني ني. ني ني ني. نو نو نو. نو نو نو. لا. لا. ني. نو.
You can see, mashallah, the Shaykh here is excitedly teaching the letter Noon. What a simple letter, simple lesson, but he's making it so enjoyable for the children. The Shaykh himself seems to be enjoying it. At the same time, the students also are enjoying it, mashallah, as well. And so it just goes to show that there is no limit to creativity. The only limit to creativity is the limit we place on ourselves. If we say, I can't do this, it's not possible, it's just not me, how can I do this? Then we're not going to do it. But if we tell ourselves that, no, let me try this, let me try that, let me see if this works, let me see if that works, let's see if this activity is good for the students. If we try, we might fail. That is true. Yes, we might fail, but failure is one of the best teachers, meaning we've tried, we've realized it didn't work, we've learned the lesson, and we've moved on and tried something else. But until we try, we won't know. And that's the particular point that we're trying to share with this activity, is that we want to engage our children. And to engage our children, we have to tell ourselves it's possible. I can do it. And these are just some ideas we've shared with you. And these ideas are limited in their own way as well. The teacher's handbook that we've mentioned earlier, they have many, many more ideas on top. And on top of that, as teachers, we have ability to speak to other teachers in our institution online, get some ideas from different places, and rework them in order to fit our lessons. And inshallah, we'll be able to have great lessons, and we'll be able to inspire the students that are in our classes as well. And finally, the point that we've covered, we've covered passion, we've covered imagination, and we've covered planning. Imagination is, of course, the different creative ideas. These three words, they also spell a fourth word, that is pip. Pip is the seed of an apple that we are planting today. The seed we're planting today, inshallah, will bear fruit tomorrow. And that the seed, we have to nurture it, look after it, the plant grows, to make sure it's watered, to make sure that it's growing straight. All of those things we have to do whilst it's growing. Once it's grown, it will provide shade to the people near and dear, and far and wide the people will benefit from the fruits of their efforts. And all of that reward will be coming to us as their teachers, inshallah. The reward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us because we worked hard in order to inspire these students. And that is what we are hoping to do through sitting through sessions like this, to become better teachers and to remind ourselves to stay good teachers, inshallah. We hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to continue teaching and to be the best teacher that we can be, inshallah. Now, moving on, Mufti Billah will join us later on, inshallah, from Misbah. But what we'll do is we'll look at some classroom management methodologies. Now, before I start with that, I'd like to just ask you the question of what are the most common types of mischief, misbehavior that you face in your classes? You can share it in the chat with us. What is the most common type? Just 1 or 2 points only from each person. You can share with us what are the most common types of misbehavior that you face from students. If you share that with us whilst I open up the presentation. Okay, so mashallah, we've got some good responses here. Things like, kids running off to the bathroom, disrespect with fellow students, speaking off topic, always playing, not being punctual, um, getting out of their seats, playing with toys or whilst the teacher is, or fiddling around with teachers, listening to the sabak or other students' sabak, not paying attention, daydreaming, asking random questions, being distracted with toys, answering teachers with disrespect, going toilet and bathroom too many times, uh, trying to leave an impression on other students with their misbehavior, coloring or bringing in crafts. All right, wonderful. MashaAllah, we've got lots of different points that have been shared. Jazakumullah khairah for sharing those. Definitely some of the most common points these are that we've seen many, many times. So let's look at how we can address some of these, inshallah. Look, I don't promise to answer every one of your questions because that's not possible. But what we do try to do is share some general points that actually will help in most cases, inshallah. So let's take a very quick look. We're going to cover three things, inshallah, and those three things, they are PCP. PCP, I'll share with you that in a few minutes, inshallah. Just make a note of that, mental note if you want, of the letters P, C, and P. Now, looking at the screen that we've got in front of us, this is a session, a lesson that we don't want to be in. In there, we've got children that are daydreaming, someone's sleeping, someone's carving up the desk, someone is sticking a note on someone's back, different things that are going on, mashallah. And the best part of it is the teacher in the top right corner is plotting and planning a career change. They can't handle it anymore. It's too much. And that's actually true in many cases. In fact, one of the stories, one of the research that has been shared recently says 55% of new teachers are leaving the teaching profession in London. This is 55% of new teachers are leaving the teaching profession within the first 5 years. Of course, this relates to teachers in public schools predominantly. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that they are teachers and they are leaving the profession at such a massive, staggering, and alarming rate. As teachers of Islamic studies and Deen and Quran and Hadith in Maktab, of course, the story is quite different. However, the challenges are pretty much the same. There is a lot of work for us to do, and there is very little time. And no matter how much, anyone that's as a teacher, usually you will hear the teachers are usually underpaid and overworked. They say we've got so much work to do, but you don't get paid enough for the work, and in fact, you end up doing a lot of the work in your own time as well. And so, how can we make our sessions such? If we want to go through and have an effective teaching in our classes, just like we've talked about earlier, then we have to have good behavior. If we don't have good behavior, then we won't be able to teach effectively. And that's why we do this session together. And how can we have that session? Let's take a look, inshallah. The objective of this session is to identify reasons of misbehavior. We want to understand how to prevent misbehavior from happening and evaluate possible ways of tackling misbehavior. This session, inshallah, won't take very long because, as I mentioned, in short, PCP. P stands for, P stands for looking at the problem, identifying the problem. That's the P, first P. We have to find the root cause of the symptom that we see in front of us, and we'll have solved a lot of the problems. That's the first one. Problem, identify the problem, not just look at the symptom. The second thing is the C, be consistent. Consistency is very, very important. So be consistent in the approach that you take. And the final P, which is PCP, final P is work on preventative measures. Work on setting up preventative measures in order to ensure that children don't get to the point of where they're misbehaving or doing things that they shouldn't be doing, etc. And of course, the biggest thing is actually prevention. But if we have all the preventative measures put in place and set up well, then a lot of the misbehavior will actually be solved and will be dealt with before it even happens. And that's why prevention is key. However, backup systems are important, and it is important for us to have some things in place which will help us in case of any issues that may arise. The most common technique that teachers utilize is actually nag, 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 shouting, telling the children off. Oi, don't do that. Be quiet. Sit down. Pay attention. I've told you this so many times now. You need to stop saying it. That's nagging. The repetitive nature of nagging will make the children become immune to what the teacher is saying. Not by purpose, not intentionally, but subconsciously. As we mentioned earlier, that the mind, the brain is a wonderful creation of Allah. It knows how to suppress, certain things and focus on other things. Right now, whilst we're sitting and listening to this session, there are other things going on around us, but our mind is actively suppressing those things and listening to what is being said right now. So our mind has done that for us because we know what is important. Similarly, to a child, whatever is important to them, their mind will pay more attention to that and less attention to the other things. That's not because they want to do that, it's because of the way that their mind has been wired. Wired by who? Wired by us. We as the teachers are creating an environment in which the children eventually learn that the teacher is background noise because the teacher's voice is always heard. The teacher is always saying, be quiet, sit down, pay attention, do this, do that. We are undermining ourselves many of the times. And so usually we recommend to teachers that use your voice less and your words will be valued. Use your voice less and your words will be valued. And so you might be asking that, oh, how do I manage behavior then? Well, there are many non-verbal ways of managing behavior. And as we mentioned, prevention is key. Put those preventative measures in place, then a lot of things will be solved by themselves. And we just have to deal with certain specific things. And that will allow us to have more control of the class. As the teacher, as the adult in the class, the shouting will get us somewhere eventually because we're the adult, we are the authority, and so the child is young and they will listen eventually if we tell them off or we shout at them or we become very agitated. It will work, but it will be the same story every day. The child is going to the toilet every day. I've told you to go to the toilet at home. I've told you to go to the bathroom at home, but they're going again. Tomorrow they will come back and you go to the bathroom again, and they will just keep on doing this. So we're dealing with the same problem every day. There's a child that's talking to the child next to them on a regular basis. You move spaces and they start talking to the new child. They're doing it on a regular basis. So how is it that I am telling them, but they are not listening to what I'm saying? If a child is not reading their lesson or their sabak or fiddling around with some toys that they're not supposed to be, then how am I going to make it such that they stop doing this forever, or at least for most of the time, that they don't play with it and I don't have to tell them, and if I do have to tell them, it's only a one-off. So we have to put in place preventative measures. I can't be working, and this is what we currently might be doing is known as a firefighting approach. A firefighting approach is not going to get us very far. It's going to be that, I'm trying to deal with this problem, and then another one breaks out somewhere else. I'm going to deal with that, and then this one, there's a problem, I'm going to deal with that, then that one, then this one, and it gets very overwhelming. And we are unable to actually deliver a good lesson because we're constantly busy with managing the behavior of our students. So how do we change from the firefighting approach to the upstream thinking approach? Now, what is upstream thinking? Upstream thinking is where, let's give you an example. There was two friends. Now, those two friends, they're sitting by the river and they're enjoying themselves. They're fishing, and a little while later, as they're just enjoying themselves, they see that there's a boy in the water and is coming with the current, and it seems to be that he's struggling and is about to drown, really. So one of the friends jumps in grabs the boy and takes him out. And a little while later, as they're still enjoying themselves, another boy comes in the middle of the water, and the friend sees and he jumps in again, and he grabs him, saves him, and brings him out. A little while later, the same thing happens again. The third one is coming downstream. There's a boy that's coming downstream, and the friend jumps in and grabs him, saves him, and brings him out. The second friend that was sitting there, he says, "You know what? I'm just going to go upstream. I'm going to go and find where all these boys are and where they're falling in from, so that I can stop them from falling in, and so that we don't have to save them over here." This is known as upstream thinking. Thinking about where the cause of the problem is, so that we can deal with it there, and we don't have to deal with it here at where the problem becomes too much to handle. So as teachers, we want to become upstream thinkers, the ones that deal with the problem, looking at where is this coming from. That's from the PCP that I shared earlier, the first point. Identify the problem, not just the symptom. So I just went to the opticians today actually, and I asked them to check my eyes out, and that reminds me of an example that if a person gets a headache and they have a Panadol or a paracetamol, the headache will go away. 5 hours later it will come back. So they have 2 more paracetamols, the headache goes away, and it comes back 5 hours later. And then 5 days later, instead of having 2, now they're going to need 3 because the 2 is not enough. And then it just continues this way. But if they actually go out and get it checked out, they realize that the problem was with the eyes. The eyes were straining. Because the eyes were straining, the headache happened. The person was getting a headache. And so until the person doesn't solve the eye strain out, the headache will continuously keep coming back. You can have as many Panadols or paracetamols as you want, but it's not going to deal with the problem. And so we have to solve the problem, not just look at the symptom. Don't just look at the talking. Don't just look at why this child is just going to the bathroom every day. This child is always disrespectful to their teacher. Don't look at that only. This child is very sleepy or not bothered. Don't just look at what you see. Try to go under the surface and see what the cause of this could be, and deal with the cause, and you'll see that the symptom will also go away. We don't want to have a battle in the class, boxing match, student versus teacher. Of course, not a physical one, but a metaphorical one. A student says, the teacher says something, student does something else. Teacher says something else, student does absolutely different. And that's not what we want in a class. We want a class where the teacher is in control, the teacher is having a good time, the children are also having a good time, and if there is anything to deal with, it can easily be dealt with. And for that, we have to identify the root causes of misbehavior. So we'll go through some of these very briefly, inshallah. Time is short. One of the causes of misbehavior, and this is looking at the root cause, remember, aimlessness. Aimlessness, children don't have anything productive to do. They don't have something specific that has been given to them to do. For example, they've read their sabak to you, and after they go back to their place, they're just waiting until you finish listening to the rest of the students. If you have a collective lesson, you listen to one student, and the rest of the students have to listen in to find out, the mistakes of the other students. Eventually, after some time, the children are going to get bored. They're going to want to do something. And because they don't have anything productive to do, they will do something that is, of course, classified as misbehavior. They will talk to someone, poke someone, throw something, play with something, fiddle around with something. So how do we prevent this? You have a timetable within a timetable. So I'll give you an example. 5 o'clock to our lesson, for example, 5 p.m. to 5:45 is a Quran lesson. During that time, within the first 5 minutes, I usually will get to listen to first 2-3 students. 2 students maybe in the first 5 minutes, and then the rest of the 15 minutes they've got time. So what I will do, not 15 minutes, still 45, in fact 40 minutes I've got remaining until we finish this session off. But I've got to listen to the rest of the students' lesson as well, their sabak. So what I usually do is I would say 5 till 5:20, everyone must be reading their lesson, their sabak. They have to be reading it. And this is an expectation that has to be set from the beginning of the year. Remember, the C, which we're going to come to, consistency. We have made this expectation clear to the beginning of the year that 5 till 5:20, you have to be reading. You can't be talking to me. You can't be talking to anyone else. You must be reading. And this will work for younger children, of course, at 6, 7 years old. But if they're younger than that, then they're going to need some guidance, assistance, someone there helping them, talking to them, etc. as well. That's a different matter. But if they're 6 plus, 7 plus, 8 plus, then it'll be much easier for them to go ahead and read for 20 minutes. They've got to read the lesson. Once they've read their sabak to me, they've got to go back to their places and do their revision. So that's 2-3 sabaks, 2-3 lessons from the past 2-3 days. They've got to read that. That will build fluency because they are reading this day in, day out. Every day they have the opportunity to do mashq, which is practice, and to use their tongue and mouth in order to articulate the letters and words that are there in their sabak, in their lesson. Then beyond that, 5:20 till 5:30, they've got to practice their tajweed. You teach them once a week, and the other days they've got some activities to do related to the tajweed rule that they've learned. 5:30 till 5:40, they've got the surah and dua memorization. You listen to them once a week or at the end of every day, but they've got this opportunity to learn. So they can sit in their place and they could learn the surahs and duas that they've got to memorize. So as you can see, we've created a mini timetable within the timetable. So the normal timetable is 5 till 5:45 is Quran lesson. But in order to make it productive for them, so that they're not aimless, we've made a little timetable for them. And they're rigorously expecting them to do it every day. You're making sure that they're doing it. They're having rewards and consequences attached to it. You will see within 2 months, it will become habit. Now, you don't have to tell them anything. You don't have to remind them anything. And you have to also gradually pull yourself out of the equation. You don't have to keep telling them. You've told them the first day, first week, 2 weeks, you're enforcing it properly. Third week, you're pulling yourself back now in the sense that you're expecting them to get on with it. If they don't, then you're making it clear to them that, look, this was an expectation and you should have already done this. And now, because you didn't, this is a consequence that you can, and you do that in the first 2 weeks anyway, but a bit less in the sense that your interaction with them is less. Just looking at them, walking around the class, if you need to, would be sufficient for them to realize what they should be doing. And then after a month and a half, then there's very little that you will need to say and do. As you walk into the class, you say Assalamu alaikum and you start the lesson off. They know that the first 20 minutes they've got to start reading. Or you say, let's go guys, students, let's start reading. And they start reading, time is done till 5:20, they move on automatically themselves to the tajweed. After that, automatically they move on to surahs and duas. But we give them that expectation, we teach them that this is what I want from you, and then we enforce it. You'll see that they will fall into it. Now this sounds like, fairy tales, or okay, it's just theory, but this is practice. It's done in practice. Alhamdulillah, it's been done for many years, but it has to be enforced in a manner, and the teacher has to then expect these things from the students by enforcing it. If it's not done in that manner, if it's not consistent, sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. We get busy, then we don't expect certain things, or there's no consequence for it, or there's no rewards on the other side, then you find that these things don't work. So we've got to try to keep them engaged productively. Then you got student passivity. I'll give you 2 stories, make it easy to understand that the underlying cause of the same symptom can be different. So 2 students I've had over time, one of them in the computer science lesson which I teach, and one of them in the maktab session which I teach. Both of them sleepy, but the causes of both of their sleepiness is different. One of them, he was low on his vitamins, medication, and the doctor had given him some tablets. If he didn't have those tablets, he would feel lethargic and lazy and sleepy. If he did, he would be feeling fine. On the other hand, the other boy, at night, he was on his phone till 2-3 a.m. And so if I was to tell them to stand up, if I was to tell them to wash their face, to walk around and catch some fresh air, tell them to do that all year round, it's not going to make a difference, because that boy needs his tablets. If he doesn't have his tablets, his medication, then he's not going to feel energetic. And the other boy is sleeping so late at night. If we don't solve this problem, then it's not going to make any difference. He's still going to be quite tired and sleepy in class. So we've got to deal with the root cause. That boy needs to have his tablets. This boy needs to put his phone away and get his parents involved and make sure that he's sleeping on time. So we've got to deal with the cause of the problem. Don't just deal with it. If I shout at them as much as I want, really it's not going to make any difference, because they are still doing the things that they're not supposed to be doing. Time wasting, children will come up with stories. They will ask funny questions. As a teacher, we need to know that, you know what, we've got to stop it here and we've got to get on with the work. And so sometimes you can entertain them. Sometimes you give them the answers. Sometimes you give them those points. But you have to make it clear to them, expectations, that, you know what, sometimes we'll do this, but this is not a regular occurrence. And we need you to make sure that you're learning everything. If that's the case, then we'll have a good time. We'll have a few discussions, talk about things, answer your questions, and we'll have a question and answer session as well. But if you don't learn what you're supposed to be, then unfortunately we can't have this opportunity as well. But the teacher controls this. It shouldn't be that the students control it. And if they come up with something like that, then we've got to have a rule in place. For example, I'll tell you, in my computer science lesson, I had enough of the children asking for a free lesson. So I made a rule to say, anyone that now says the F word, meaning the free lesson, then they will get an instant detention. They've got to stay behind instantly. You know, there's no ifs, there's no buts. Whether you said it by mistake, you said it as a joke, you said it really, doesn't matter. You're going to stay behind for a detention. Effectively applied, you know, the students now know if anyone does say it, then they are going to end up in a detention. And so we've got to then put that expectation as a teacher, make it clear to them, enforce it, and you'll see that it will fall into line. Teacher nagging, we've already spoken about. Issues at home. Students come with every kind of problem, you know, under the sun. Issues at home, no attention being given, parents are too busy. There's maybe you know, divorce going on, maybe they're a refugee family, lots of different things that are going on in children's lives. We've got to give them a safe haven at madrasa, at maktab, and our classes, and at the same time understand what their needs are and try to meet those needs. If we can meet those needs in class, then we'll see that the children will actually perform better. Just for a bit of reading for yourself in your own time, how this can impact the issues at home, or unfound issues that haven't been found, haven't been discovered, haven't been addressed properly, how they can have a massive impact on the child's behavior, their ability to understand, and a lot of other things. There's a story on the BBC called, the title of it is, I was a teacher for 17 years, yet I couldn't read. I was a teacher for 17 years, yet I couldn't read, or I didn't know how to read. It's a very interesting story, and if you focus on just the earlier years, how he copied, and you know, if he couldn't copy anyone, he bullied others, and he stole people's work, and all sorts of things that he did. And he'd tell himself, I want to be better, I want to be better, but he just couldn't be better because he couldn't read. And so this is an underlying issue. It wasn't discovered, and it caused all of the mischief and misbehavior that was seen. So as teachers, we've got to find these problems, identify the problem, deal with the problem, nip it in the bud, deal with it from under the surface. Don't just try to deal with it today and the same problem occurs tomorrow, and then again the next day, and then again the day after, and we're just constantly dealing with these issues. So we want to deal with them once and for all. So prevention, work on prevention. And to work on prevention, we have to understand where we are working from. And what doesn't contribute to misbehavior? It's effective use of time and quality learning. Now we have to plan our approach in order to deliver a good lesson with good behavior. So we talked about making a plan for our lesson. Now this is a plan for managing behavior, but this comes under the consistency part that we talked about. That the preventative measures that we put in place, we've got to be consistent with them, and we'll see the results, inshallah. And for this, we look at the GROW model. We use a GROW model, which stands for goal, reality, options, and will. These are the 4 areas that we talk about. What is the goal in behavior management? The goal is to have appropriate behavior displayed by students, because it helps them learn better. If the class is all over the place, misbehaving, running around, all sorts, the teacher is teaching, still the students will take something away, but of course they won't take away as much information as they should. And so if we want them to learn better, we need them to have good behavior. Then we've got to do a reality check as a teacher. That where do I stand? Do I have the training? Do I have the backing of the management? Do I have the resources available? What are my students like? Sometimes you have every year you're going to have a different batch of students, different challenges you're going to face. Like a few years ago, I had a student with autism. Someone in the chat mentioned about students that are autistic as well. So that was new to me. I hadn't had an autistic child in my class before. And so now I had to learn. I was lenient. I was overly lenient with him initially. After talking to his father, it turned out actually I can be strict on him when I need to be, but I just have to teach him in a way that I can break down the information so that he can digest it and he can understand what I expect from him. He turned out to be one of the brightest students of the class, mashallah. All I needed to do was change my approach. Once I changed my approach, he was fine. His misbehavior was such that if he couldn't work something out, he would start spinning around in his place. And you think to yourself, what's gone wrong? And so I've got to understand my student and I've got to change my style of teaching accordingly. We'll have students that will come with all sorts of challenges. And if we understand the way that they learn and we adapt our teaching methodology to include them, then we'll see a lot of the misbehavior will also be managed and will also be dealt with. In terms of resources, having a reward system, having a sanction system. If you want to get an idea, go to the Nasiha Teachers Forum, type in points. There's a reward system there. There's 2-3 different ideas on there. You can utilize those, one of them, all of them, and you'll be able to have a reward system that is encouraging students to behave well. Many times we have punishments for misbehavior, but we don't have rewards for good behavior. So we want to reward good behavior as well. We want them to be encouraged to actually behave well because they're going to get something out of it. And initially it will be just for these rewards, but then it will inshallah become a habit. So that's part of the resources, rewards and sanctions. Along with that, warning letters, meeting home, parents meeting. What can you do? What are the resources available to you? We've got to know that. Once you know that, you can then make your plan. And as part of the plan, there's a few options. These options are, of course, just a few options for you to think about. But there are many options, many ways in which you can manage behavior. So here we've got rules and routines. Rules and routines are pretty simple to understand. We've got to have rules and routines in our class. In fact, in my class, what I do is the beginning of the year, 2 days, we spend on rules and routines and expectations. That this is what I expect from you. This is what the class should look like. This is how you should set it up. This is how you sit. This is where your bag goes. This is where your jacket goes. You've got to make sure these books are with you. This is how this is what respect means. This is what disrespect means. All the different expectations I have from them, I will explain to them. Of course, it will be a discussion. It won't just be me telling them for 2 days straight, all of these things. Of course, a discussion, we're talking about it, asking them questions, they're getting to know them. And that's what you spend the first 2 days to get to know the students and enforce the rules and make the expectations clear to them. Respect to me means something else, and to another teacher might mean something different. And so I've got to tell the students before expecting them to be respectful. I've got to tell them what I mean by respect. And those rules and routines I've set up, I've got to show it to them. I've got to demonstrate it to them. I've got to expect it from them after I've shown it to them, not before I've shown it to them. And set the standard right from the beginning. And then I've got to enforce that standard. If I make a standard today and then tomorrow I say, okay, it's all right, they're new, it's fine. Or, I make a very strict rule and I apply it very harshly. And then a few days later, I find it to be too strict. I let it go and then I think about it. Actually, no, I should bring it back again. And so the students really don't know what to expect. So it's like a rubber band, a game, where you just pull the rubber band and see if it breaks, it doesn't break, and suddenly it snaps and someone gets hurt. Similarly, students, they try different things. They push your buttons. Suddenly the teacher gets angry and then everything, the whole world collapses basically. And then the next day, everything's back to normal. And then the students are back to their own self and doing this and that. And the teacher's fine with it. And then, it becomes the whole situation again. So instead of that, we have a few principles, a few rules. And it's like a line. If they cross that line, then they've got to face the consequence. And if they don't cross it, then we have a great time, inshallah. So that's rules and routines. Have few rules, encourage the rules, enforce that the rules must be followed, and teach them what the benefit of these rules actually are. Lessons, we've talked about planned lessons. Having planned lessons actually helps with behavior because there's less time to do the things that they shouldn't be doing. So because the teacher has already planned all of those lessons. We won't go into too much detail of that, but that can be understood. Rewards, we've talked about that already. The rewards don't always have to be tangible, that you're going to get something. They can be points, they can be certificates, they can be actual items as well, and they could just be words that can be utilized by the teacher to encourage the students as well. So use rewards, have rewards in order to encourage good behavior, and use positive language because that also has an effect on the students' minds. So these are some of the points that you can implement within your lessons and hopefully find some benefit, inshallah. So the GROW model we've covered, which stands for G, which stands for goal, R for reality, O for options, W for will. This will, we spoke about this earlier. It's a repetition of the same. Why do we want to do this? Why do we want the children to behave? It's the lesson will be better for us and will be better for them as well. The children will enjoy it and we will enjoy it at the same time as well. We won't be looking at the time as soon as we walk in and say, oh, 2 more hours. You know what? It's a long day today. The students won't come in, wondering what time is it, when will we go home, We'll both be there as teachers and students and we'll want to be there and we'll enjoy it, and time will be over before we even know it. And why do we do this? Because we know the reward of it. We know that at the end of the day, the students will actually benefit from what we are sharing with them. And if they behave, they will benefit much more. They'll be able to take with them much more information and content and knowledge and practice, and they will be inspired in a better manner, inshallah. And that's why we work, and that's why we persevere. That's why we are trying to be as creative as possible. So as a reminder, PCP, identify the problem, be consistent. This consistency is very, very important. For 1 month, 2 months, be very, very consistent. After that, you of course have to be consistent, but you'll see that that consistency will pay off. 40 days it takes for a person to change their mindset, their psyche, their ability to think in a particular manner. And so 40 days, 2 months you spend on just enforcing and being consistent in your rules and routines. Of course you can forgive, but that forgiveness, you say, you know what, I've given you a detention, but if you continue to talk, then I'm going to have to reinstate that detention for you. And so being consistent with that, not just letting things go, letting things slide. We continue to let things slide because it's easy for us as a teacher, and then you'll see that the impact of it will be that every day we're going to be dealing with the same misbehavior, mischief. So we're talking about taking bathroom breaks. If they're taking too many bathroom breaks, then we've got to come to a conclusion of why are they taking so many bathroom breaks. So we have a discussion with them, talk to them. Look, when's the last time we went to a bathroom? Why? How long do we come to the maktab madrasa for? What do we come here to do? How long is the time that we have here? So all of these things we talk about. Of course, if there's a need, an emergency, there is a bathroom available. However, bathroom breaks are not allowed. You go to the bathroom, then however much time you spend there, minimum 5 minutes, you're going to have to stay behind after madrasa, and beyond that, extra minutes will be added for the other amount of time that you spend in the bathroom. And so in this manner, you are effectively enforcing a particular rule and making sure that they follow through with it. You'll see that those bathroom breaks will cut down as well, because now they know that there's a consequence for it, and that consequence is consistent. It's gonna happen. It's not going to be that the teacher says, oh, you know what, it's okay, it's fine, today you can go home, no problem. That's just one example. Of course, there's other things that you can do about it, but this is an example to say if we consistently apply it, you'll see that slowly the students will understand that this is the expectation, and I've got to make sure that I follow through with the expectation of the teacher. And lastly, so we said problem, identify the problem, consistency, and prevention. Work on preventative measures. Put in place the preventative measures in which the children know what is expected of them and the consequences they know of if they break the rules, and the rewards of if they follow the rules. You'll see that you won't have to deal with many of them. Now, if you have to deal with the problems, we have this slide here that talks about how to deal with different problems or what different tactics you can use. Many of them are self-explanatory because as teachers we already do them, but I'll explain 2-3 of them. First one being tactical ignorance, right in the middle. Sometimes we're teaching a wonderful lesson and some child there is ruffling with some paper and we get really, distracted by it. So we can stop the lesson and tell them off and carry on after that and try to bring everyone's attention back. Or we can tactically ignore it for the time being, let them be. We walk around the class and they realize when we stop by them that they need to stop doing it, and we continue the lesson off. We don't say anything. And when we finish, then we say, you know what, Khalid, actually you should have paid attention. You shouldn't be ruffling around with that paper playing about whilst we're teaching. That's tactical ignorance. If we get every child on every misbehavior that they're displaying, we're never going to get anything done. So sometimes we've got to let it go temporarily. Don't let it go completely, temporarily. And then afterwards, if they've done it where everyone has seen it, they have to deal with it in a manner that everyone can see it. If they've done it that no one has really realized, then we can deal with it privately as well. So tactical ignorance. Then the next one we've got is take up time. Sometimes you've got to, elder students especially, give them some time to understand, digest the order, the instruction we've given them. And if they don't follow through after that, then they've got to follow find the consequence for it. But if we shouldn't expect them to do it instantly, straight. I've told you, you must do it straight away. Sometimes they need a few seconds, a minute or so, and then of course there is going to be a consequence if they don't do it. But don't enforce it immediately, because that becomes a secondary issue. Then the last one I'm going to cover is threaten only what you will carry out. As a teacher, this usually is the biggest mistake that we end up making, is we keep on threatening, but we don't carry out those threats. You talk one more time, I'll call your parents. The students know, the teachers know, everyone knows that the last time the teacher called the parents was never. So there's not really going to call anyone's parents. And so that threat is just empty. Giving empty threats out doesn't really help. If you tell them that you're going to make them sit for a detention, or you're going to give them lines, or you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you don't do it, the next time you say that, it just is an empty threat. They know that you're not going to do it. And so what motivation do they have to follow the instruction you've given them? They have no motivation. And so as a teacher, the rule that we should follow is, if you do threaten with action, then you must take that action. If you say you're going to call someone's parents, then of course you have to call that student's parents, because you've said that you're going to do it. And this also relates to the hierarchy of punishments and sanctions, that we shouldn't threaten calling someone's parents for every little thing that they've done. There has to be a hierarchy of sanctions, starting from little things that you deal with in the class itself. Then things that grow a bit bigger, you use the head teacher, the management for this. Things get a bit worse, then you have some report system that they have to, you send a letter home, and there is a report that the child will have to get signed by the parent, teacher, and head teacher to say today was a good day, behavior, sabak, etc., was good. Signature for 2 weeks, a report system. Then a warning meeting that is held with the parents, or call is made at home. So you see there's a progression. If we keep saying, I'm going to call your dad, I'm going to call your mom, and every little thing they do, you have a chat with their parents, the importance of having a chat with their parents is gone out the window. So next time they do something big, something very serious, they'll be like, yeah, it's okay, let's talk to my parents are used to this. So we want to follow the hierarchy. So we threaten what we're going to carry out. If we've threatened that we're going to call their parents or give them a detention, we've got to make sure that we do this as well. That brings us actually to the end of the session. These are some case studies which we won't be able to go through right now, but just to finish off, whatever we've covered today will actually expire in 24 hours. If we don't put it into practice within 24 hours, then it's basically as if we didn't take part in this session at all. So we've got to make sure that we, inshallah, whatever we've covered today, we put something of that into practice. And when we put some of that into practice, we will see the benefit of that, inshallah, will be immediate and instant. And if you have some ideas, some questions, please do share that with us, and we'll be able to try to answer those questions for you. As I mentioned earlier, there is the platform Nasiha World. Nasiha World is a platform where you can subscribe, and you're able to, this is a paid platform. So the Teachers Forum and the exam portal are free of charge for teachers, but Nasiha World is a paid platform where you have access to books, the books themselves. These are the course books themselves. The Dua book is there, Tajweed Guide, Qaida is there, Shafi Fiqh book, Juz Amma is there. All of these are just PDFs that you can read online. They're not downloadable, they're just able to read online. So you're able to sort of jump ahead if you wanted to, page 44, for example, and you're able to go through and read the content, zoom into it, etc. If you're teaching online, a wonderful tool, inshallah, for that as well. Then we have, for example, the Dua book. You know, the Dua book has got all the duas, surahs, names of Allah. Let's go to page 44 again, not 144, or 33, let's say. So we've got, you can see here, they've got the duas here. The transliteration is there for the earlier ages. The surahs are there as well with the transliteration. As they get older, the transliteration is taken out because they're more proficient with reading the Arabic language. The names of Allah for each year, and then at the end, the full 99 names are there as well. There's also trackers to track the progress. There's quizzes. There's 7 subjects in the books, of course. So you get fiqh, for example, there are 8 levels. So level 1 to 8, 6 to 14 years old for level 1, and 14 years old is book 8. You've got the topics. Each topic will have different activities that you can do for each one of those topics in that particular subject, that particular book. There's puzzles, again the same. We've got fiqh, you've got level 1, you've got multiple puzzles. You can play those games with the students. Multimedia, you've got cartoon series, you've got the course book 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So you've got Quran, so the surahs in audio format and video, so you can actually see it being highlighted as it's been recited. The ahadith, there's English and Arabic being recited and read out, and there's the duas as well. And like that, you go through for the different levels. And then just new, what we've added, it's currently in beta, it's not fully public, it is available, is the interactive qaida. So if you go to part 1, for example, so the qaida that we showed you, it's a book format, but if you come here, this is the interactive format. So let's go to lesson 1A. You've got all of the letters here. You can play them. It will play for you one by one, letter by letter. You can click on each one of them, and you can click to display, and you can actually play that particular letter as well. Click on that, you can go to the next one. And then if we just jump ahead to, let's say, lesson 5F, you've got all of these words. You can listen to the whole page if you want to by playing the sound here, or you can click on one of them and then click once in the middle, show you the letter. Click again, it will show you the haraka. Click again, it will show you the next letter. Click again, the next haraka. And like that, you can click through and ask the children to spell it out for you. And then you can actually listen to it with spelling. It will say wa, ha, su, na. Or you play without spelling, it will say wa, ha, su, na. And like that, you go through the various letters. If we change the part to part 2, part 2 will go through the sukoon, the shadda, and as you get to the higher levels, it will also get to the verses of the Quran as well. So it will play one, it will show one word at a time. So this is part of Nasiha World, and it is built in. It's part of the whole the package that you would subscribe to. In fact, there is a free trial for 30 days. If you subscribe to this, then there's 30 days annual plan or the monthly plan. 30 days is free of charge, and after that you get charged this amount, £35. If you want to manage 1 child under you, 2 children under you, then it's £40, 3 children is 45. Of course, this is for parents. Teachers can use this as well. Teachers will just subscribe to this one, and they will have that one account. They can then display it on their screen to the students. If you want your students to have access, there is an education plan. There is no way to manage the students, but they will all have an account, each of their own, at a discounted rate. But you'll have to get in touch with us on this education button, and then you'll be given the pricing for your institution, inshallah. But if you sign up, 30 days is free. You can check it all out, and if you want to continue, then you don't have to cancel. If you do cancel, you don't get charged anything within the 30 days, inshallah. Teachers Forum. This is the Teachers Forum. You've got multiple resources. They are all available here as well. Click on any of them, you download them. Soon Ramadan's coming up, so type in Ramadan. There's different spellings, of course, of Ramadan, so you can spell those and check it out. You'll see multiple resources. There's booklets, checklists, booklets, PowerPoint presentations, charts, posters, all sorts of different things that you can download and you can use within your classes. Spell it in a different way, then you might get some other ones as well. And then we've got the exam portal, which I mentioned. So I'll just quickly log into that. I don't know if Mufti Ubaidullah is with us. Inshallah, if he is with us, he's going to speak to us for a little while, and then we'll finish off. So we've got the exam portal. I'll just quickly log in. Click on build paper. So the admin must sign up. The teachers don't sign up. The admin then creates teacher accounts. So let's select the book. From all the 8 books, we select the first book, for example. You can select all these subjects or just one of them or 2 of them. So let's select 2 of them. Click on search. You got all the topics here. So let's get this one here. If I just zoom into this, you can see there's 5 marks, 2 minutes, and easy. This one's 1 mark, 1 minute, and easy. I can add them. As I add them, you can see they're adding up on the right hand side. And as I add more, on the bottom here, you'll see how much time, how many questions, and how many marks. So let's add more, and you'll see the time update. Once I'm ready, I can take a look and say, actually, a tick box exercise, I should move that to the top. So I can click the buttons and move it up. You can see the question number has changed. It's question 1. The answers are all there as well. When I'm ready, I can export it, include the mark scheme, which is all the answers, and a cover sheet with your own logo, which you uploaded when you signed up, a title, subtitle, class. Put some instructions here if you want. If you don't, there are some default instructions built in as well, and download it as a PDF document or a Word document. And that is available to you absolutely free of charge, a bank of 2,000 plus questions. So that's the exam portal. So that's all I wanted to show you at this moment in time. If you have any questions, feel free. Let me just show you the An-Nasiha website itself, and so that you actually have the contact number on WhatsApp if you have any questions. So this second number here, the one I've highlighted, that is the number for WhatsApp. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us, or feel free to get in touch with Mufti Ubaidullah and the team at Misbah, and they will inshallah be able to assist you and give you some specific guidance, especially related to North America. They can assist you further in person as well, inshallah. So it says here, may we have links. You told us in September, but I didn't reach them all. When we send this email today for a reminder, if you subscribed, if you registered for this session, we did send an email, and in the email actually there are some of the links as well. So if you need some of the links, just get in touch with us on WhatsApp if you couldn't get them anywhere, and we'll be able to share those links with you as well, inshallah. Mufti Ubaidullah, if you're with us, you can take over. Otherwise, inshallah, we can end this session. Jazakumullah khairah for joining us today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability to continue being wonderful teachers. Bless us all and accept all of our work, and grant us sincerity, and allow us to enter into Jannatul Firdaus with all of our students, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I don't think Mufti Ubaidullah is with us at this moment in time. What we'll do is I'll just show you very quickly the website for Misbah. So Misbah is Maktab Education Services Board of America, as mentioned earlier. And so this is the website where you'll get a lot of information and resources. So you can click on Maktab Resources and then click on this link over here. So it'll open up on a Google Drive. And there's lots of there's lots of documents here in the Google Drive, different resources that have been prepared for you to download to create a organized maktab that is well set up, professionally run, and something that will inshallah be of long-term benefit for the community and for the children. If you needed support from the team at Misbah, free of charge, they're able to support you. You can just contact them using this contact form, and they will be in touch with you in order to help you and assist you on how to set up, answer particular questions and specific support related to North America, and they'll be able to provide you with further training sessions as well in person as well. So the website is misbah.org, mesba.org, and inshallah you can visit that website as well and get some information from there. Jazakumullah khairah. We'll end the session right now, and inshallah if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.